Good morning, class. Welcome to reading. Today we'll be learning about compare and contrast, which is a great way when you are reading to comprehend what's going on in the story and how it could possibly compare to what's going on in your life. So, to start off, the purpose of this lesson is to teach students how to compare and contrast by reading the book American Football by Luann Silver. Has anyone read this book before? You know what it's about? Yes, it's about American football. Um, and we will be using this book today to learn how to compare and contrast. Alright, so let's break this down. How many of you, by show of hands, know what the words compare and contrast mean? Yes, you can look on the board as a little cheat sheet, but compare is when you are looking at two different things or more, and comparing is when you can find similarities between them. So, can someone tell me what some examples of things that are comparable might be? Really anything. You could think of a cat and a dog, or a human and a dog, or a human and a cat. Those are things that all could be compared. So next we have contrast. By show of hands, how many of you think you know what contrast means? Okay, again, by using the board, you can see that contrast means that something has differences. So we have a compare and contrast diagram here. You have compare in the middle and contrast on the outsides with two different topics by A and B. So you're comparing a topic called A and a topic called B, and in the middle you should be able to find some comparisons. So we'll learn how to do this today. You can really compare and contrast anything if you want to. You can compare and contrast movies, musicians, food, animals, books. My example is Harry Potter and Luke Skywalker. You have two very, very, very talented people, but the reasons why they're talented are completely different. Or they are very alike because both of them lost their parents when they were young. To As a difference would be that Luke Skywalker lives in outer space and Harry Potter lives in England. So, see, two things, two very different things, but also two very similar things. Alright, so you can compare and contrast anything. So here's our cats and dogs example, oranges and apples. There's similarities between those two as well. Okay, so to compare and contrast things, to put them on paper, you can put them into a chart. The chart that you've been seeing was a Venn diagram. The chart that we will mostly use in this class is this T-chart, comparison chart, where you have your first idea on the left, you have your second idea on the right, and in the middle you have their similarities. So under art, we're going to use art class and gym class as an example. For art, we would put all the things you might do in art class that are specific to art class, and then we'll do that for gym, and then in the middle, we will figure out what kinds of things could be similar about the two classes. You're learning. You're working together in class. You are doing things that you wouldn't do in a normal class, right? Just some things here. Alright, so how does this apply to reading? So compare and contrast is most important when you are reading a story. When you are reading, you should be asking many questions about the plot. How is this same as other stories? How does this compare to my life as a person? How do the characters compare to each other? How are the events in the story similar to what's going on earlier in the story? How are the events similar to another story? How events in the story compare to my experiences as a person? Just those things you should be asking yourself as you're reading a book. It makes it more real life, and you're able to you're able to relate to it a little bit more. So how we're going to do this is we'll practice using comparison charts while we read the book American Football by Luann Silver. So I'll put American Football on the screen and I will read pages 4 to 10 to the class. And then while we're thinking about that, we will think about other sports and how they might compare. And the sport that we're going to do at the end of our reading is soccer. So we will compare football and soccer. We'll start by, we'll fill out this comparison chart on the whiteboard and we'll write things in common. So they play in teams, they use a ball, they score points to a goalpost, they wear jerseys, and then we'll write things about soccer, like the ball stays on the ground, or 13 players on the field, or you can't touch the ball with your hands. And then we'll move to the football category, where the ball cannot touch the ground, or there's 11 players on the field, or players hold the ball and throw it. From there, I will have you finish the story independently and come up with more similarities or differences between soccer and football that you can think of as you're finishing the story. I'll have you write those thoughts down on a sheet of paper, and once we are all done, turn and whisper to your neighbor what you found interesting about the rest of the story. To finish off this activity, we will pick 2 items individually and make a comparison chart with them. It can be 2 items, completely different items. It could be 2 foods, 2 animals, 2 books, movies. Just make it fun. But just know that those objects that you choose, and you will be putting them on a comparison chart. When you are finished, you'll share them with a neighbor, and then we will meet together as a class on the rug and share. So pick wisely, but make it fun. All right. Have fun.